Ever launch a church or campus and fail? I have. And I can tell you it's one of the most painful and humbling experiences in ministry. You pour in the time, the prayer, vision, and energy, and still, it doesn't go the way you had hoped. I've talked with leaders who've launched campuses with some of the biggest, most well-resourced churches in the country. Plenty of people and money and momentum, and still, the launch didn't last. Why? Because launching a campus isn't just about passion, preparation, or prayer. Even though all three are absolutely essential. You need passion to inspire. You need a solid plan to guide your team and deep spiritual preparation to stay grounded in God's purpose. But even with all that in place, if you don't identify and avoid the deadly launch killers, you're setting yourself up for frustration or even failure. And that's why this episode is called How to Avoid the Deadly Launch Killers. Because the killers are real, some are subtle, some are obvious, but all of them can drain momentum, divide teams, and derail the mission before it even gets off the ground. In this session, I want to help us recognize those threats so we can launch with clarity, strength, and sustainability. Hi, I'm Kevin Brown, lead pastor of Cornerstone Church, a multi-site church in Southwest Georgia. Before we dive into the list of launch killers, let me say this. You don't have to do ministry alone. One of the greatest mistakes we make is launching in isolation. You might have the vision, but if you don't have the right voices and relationships around you, you might miss the wisdom and strength that could carry you through. The friends you surround yourself with matter. I'm reminded of the paralyzed man in the Gospels, and he couldn't get to Jesus on his own, but his friends carried him, and they climbed up on a roof and tore it open and lowered him down to the feet of Jesus. It was their faith that made the difference. Who you have around you can determine whether you make it to Jesus or stay stuck on the outside. That's why I'm so thankful for Harvest Network. Harvest isn't just a credentialing body or a leadership hub. It's a family, a group of pastors, church planters, and leaders who carry one another to Jesus. We support each other, pray for one another, and speak life and wisdom into one another's journey. So if you're planting a church, launching a campus, or leading in ministry, don't go it alone. Find a tribe that will carry you when you can't carry yourself. You can learn more and get connected at harvestnetwork.live. All right, let's dive into the launch killers and how to avoid them. So the top launch killers for a multi-site campus starts with, number one, a lack of spiritual preparation. One of the fastest ways to derail a campus launch is to rely on hype instead of holiness. A launch built on excitement alone will quickly fizzle out. But a launch bathed in prayer, fasting, and spiritual readiness has strength that goes well beyond our own ability. Spiritual preparation must take priority. Make prayer meetings more important than production meetings. Seek God's presence before seeking platform excellence. The strength of your launch will be directly tied to the depth of your dependence on God. Launch killer number two, launching without a called and qualified campus pastor. A charismatic speaker or a loyal staff member isn't enough. You need someone who's called, has the character and capacity to lead, and who embodies your church's DNA. In a previous session, we talked about the importance of the right people. You need the right campus pastor, and it's good to stress this again. A weak leader will create a weak launch, no matter how good the strategy is. So don't set up your campus pastor to fail. About 10 years ago, one of the fastest growing churches in the U.S. started a new campus and put a volunteer leader in as the campus pastor and really set him up to fail. The amount of oversight and leadership and pastoral care and vision casting needed for this second site was more than this volunteer's capacity at the time. Launch killer number three, a lack of a core group with buy-in. Without a core group with buy-in, your leadership structure will be weak. Don't launch with a crowd, launch with a committed core. A crowd will consume but not contribute. In a previous session, we talked about building your core so you can launch strong. Part of building the core is identifying and empowering the right leaders. Your core should carry the culture, model the mission, and commit to multiplying. When launch day comes, the church can't be carried by one person's shoulders. That's why having a core is so critical. Now, there are some essential leaders you need at the launch. At launch, there are 4 essential leadership roles that help shape the health and momentum of the new campus. First is the worship leaders, who's responsible for guiding people into the presence of God, not just through songs, but through creating a worship culture that is spirit-led and team-driven. This leader must be able to gather musicians and vocalists and tech volunteers while developing them spiritually and musically. The youth and children's ministry leader plays a critical role in creating a safe, engaging, and Christ-centered environment for kids and families. This person must build and train a team of background-checked volunteers, implement age-appropriate systems, and prioritize both fun and formation. The hospitality leader is the first impression maker, ensuring that every guest feels seen, valued, and welcome from the moment they arrive. This leader is responsible for recruiting and equipping greeters and ushers and connection team members, and must create a culture of warmth and follow-up. Finally, the life group leader helps establish a culture of discipleship from day one, launching initial small groups and mentoring future group leaders. This leader models relational discipleship and multiplication, helping people move from attending to belonging. Now, each of these leaders must be able to gather a team and develop new leaders, multiplying their impact and helping build a strong, sustainable foundation for the campus. In the beginning, most of these leaders serve as volunteers. As the campus becomes financially sustainable, your first hires will likely be the campus pastor, if they're not already paid, the worship leader, youth and children's ministry leader. But remember, every campus is different. Timing and order of hiring will depend on your team's availability, giftings, and local realities. So be flexible, but intentional. All right, launch killer number 4, doing everything yourself and delaying delegation. A common launch killer is trying to carry the entire mission alone or waiting too long to involve others. This often goes hand in hand with the lack of core group buy-in. When people aren't empowered early, they don't feel ownership. And without ownership, momentum stalls. So avoid this by training and trusting your team to lead. If you want your leaders to be able to build a team and develop leaders, you must do the same. So don't just assign tasks, develop people. Delegation isn't a sign of weakness, it's a strategy for long-term strength. All right, launch killer number 5, poor site selection. Every mission needs a home, and the wrong home can kill the mission. Your location doesn't need to be perfect, but it must be strategic. So what do you look for? Well, reasonable rent. Obviously, you want some place that has reasonable rent, something that you can afford. You don't want the rent to suffocate your ministry. If your rent's too high, your resources dry up fast, and so you need to launch lean. Secondly, high visibility. You want something with high visibility. People should be able to see it, find it, get to it. If people can't find you, they're not going to visit you. You need plenty of parking. How many cars can be in your parking lot? If there's nowhere to park, you're limiting your growth. No parking equals no returning guests. Adequate seating. How many chairs are you able to set up in the church for service? We want to think of the future. Don't max out at launch. Think beyond opening day. Leave some room for growth. How about children's ministry space? Our goal was to reach families. So we knew we needed room for children's ministry. Families are not going to return if the kids don't have a space they enjoy. So avoid this killer by choosing a space that serves your mission, not one that just happens to be available. Another important consideration in site selection is distance between the new campus and the sending campus. If the new location is too close, there's a strong possibility that people will continue attending the original campus rather than fully investing in the new one. We've seen this happen before. Even one of the fastest growing churches in the U.S. made this mistake years ago by launching a campus too close to home, which ultimately hindered the growth and the identity of the new location. Proximity can undermine momentum. So it's crucial to plant far enough away to create a clear sense of identity, ownership, and mission for the new campus. Launch killer number 6, bad timing. One of the most avoidable launch mistakes is picking a date without considering preparation, community rhythms, or promotional windows. Timing isn't everything, but it matters. So launching too early or during a season when people are distracted or disconnected can cost you valuable momentum. It's far more effective to work with the natural seasons of the year than against them. Some dates are simply better than others. Ideal launch seasons include the fall. People are back in rhythm after summer and ready to re-engage. This is my favorite time to launch because it also provides the longest stretch of consistent attendance before summer break disrupts momentum. January is another great time to launch. People are looking for a fresh start. It's a fresh moment when people are open to forming new habits. Easter, one of the highest attended Sundays of the year where you can maximize that momentum. A well-timed launch sets the stage for long-term impact. Launch killer number 7, lack of preparation. Man, hope is not a strategy. And one of the most common reasons campuses limp into launch day is because they underestimate how much is needed to be prepared in advance. A successful launch requires intentional, detailed planning, not last-minute scrambling. So here's what you'll need to prepare. This is not an exhaustive list, but on the technical side, sound, lights, video, storage, staging. Test everything well before Sunday. When you think about children's ministry, are you going to use tables and chairs or rugs? What toys will you have? Check-in systems and safety protocols. How about your foyer? Is it clear signage, coffee stations, welcoming hospitality setups? Administrative supplies, bulletins, are you going to use them? Giving envelopes, curriculum, printed materials. Waiting until the last minute to order or test key equipment is a recipe for frustration and disaster. So this is why having multiple preview services, ideally one per month in the 3 months leading up to a launch, is so important. Preview services give your team time to practice, to troubleshoot, and build confidence before the big day. Avoiding this killer by planning early, creating a detailed checklist, and assigning responsibility to trusted leaders. Preparation creates confidence, and confident teams create welcoming environments where people can encounter God. So plan early, order in advance, and test everything. You don't want any surprises on launch Sunday. Launch killer number 8, silent launch. You've worked hard to get ready, but if no one knows you're launching, all the efforts may go unnoticed. One of the biggest mistakes church planters make is underestimating the importance of marketing and not just relying solely on word of mouth. A strong launch requires visibility. Marketing isn't about hype, it's about hospitality. You're inviting your city into something eternal. And that invitation must be clear, intentional, and well-timed. Effective strategies include large portable signage that draws attention and directs people in. Targeted social media ads on platforms like Facebook and Instagram. Direct mailers sent out weeks in advance. And community-based events like interest meetings and preview services or local picnics. And while marketing strategies matter, never discount the power of an excited core team. When they're equipped and energized, they'll bring others with them. So avoid a silent launch by telling the story before the story begins. Let your city know that you're here and you are ready. Launch killer number 9, overestimating resources and underestimating challenges. Man, I've been guilty of this one before. Launching with no money and no people doesn't mean launching recklessly. It means launching with faith-fueled resourcefulness. The danger comes when leaders assume resources will just magically appear once things get going. Don't assume that money will come later or that volunteers will just show up. Instead, plan lean, expect opposition, build margin into your systems, start with what you have, steward it well, and trust God to multiply it. Challenges will come, but they are often what God uses to strengthen our leadership, to stretch our faith, and sharpen our focus. Launching strong doesn't require abundance. It requires wisdom, it requires grit, and a clear-eyed view of the road ahead. But don't let a preventable mistake stall your mission. Avoid the deadly launch killers and launch with clarity, with confidence and purpose. Remember, your launch isn't the finish line, it's the starting line of a new move of God in your community. And if this session has helped you, share it with someone who's preparing to plant, relaunch, or go multi-site. Let's multiply what God is doing together. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see you in the next session as we continue this journey of disciple making, leadership development, and church multiplication.